All of us have a favorite character from our most beloved series. For the returning audience, I'm sure you guys know for me, that is the Soulsborne games. There's one character that drew me in much more than any other, and for the majority of my time playing the series, was my favorite. The Wolf Knight who was corrupted by the Abyss and left many clues of his legend behind upon traversing the original Dark Souls. Today we are diving deep into a character breakdown of Artorias of the Abyss. First, to paint the picture accurately, let's go back to the day I discovered Artorias. The DLC had just released the same day, and by the time it was downloaded, and that I discovered the absurd method FromSoft designed to access it, I was good to go. My skill level was average at best, and even with full Havel's armor and every weapon in my arsenal, it became very apparent that this guy was designed completely different than any other human-like opponent we faced off against previously. His incredible movement with airborne plunges, front flip slams, and even the sheer health bar was a lot more intimidating. After defeating Artorias for the first time, I wondered what his backstory could be. I never had questioned the lore of Dark Souls nearly this much, so it's safe to say that Artorias' story is what led me to look deeper into the game's story in the first place. Artorias served as one of the legendary 4 Knights of Gwyn, along with Hawkeye, Kieran, and Ornstein. We will definitely touch base on them later in the video, but for now, let's take a moment to go back in time before you even enter the DLC, back to the days of Artorias in his prime. Artorias was originally tasked with halting the spread of the Abyss and protecting those of Oolacile. With these duties, he was entrusted the powerful Covenant Ring to traverse the Abyss to prevent it from consuming him. The town of Oolacile was originally known to be a much more peaceful place than present day, and all seemed well until they unearthed an ancient darkness, awaking Manus, father of the Abyss. This primeval human buried beneath the city was something that the people of Oolacile wouldn't even begin to be prepared for. His darkness spread across time and space, eventually finding Dusk, who you end up revealing in the Chasm of the Abyss.
Long ago, in my homeland of Oolacile, I was beset by a creature from the Abyss. I would have perished then, were it not for the great Knight Artorias.
Elsewhere in Lordran, there's some similarities to the conflict that arose in Oolacile. The Dark Wraiths, the Covenant of the Abyss, and the 4 kings themselves affected New Londo, which now lays in ruin. Presumably the only thing keeping the darkness from spreading further upward in this area was Lord Gwyn's plan, which happened to be sealing them away by flooding the place completely. The key to the seal, entrusted to Ingward, is the only way we were able to uncover its horrors while making our way through New Londo as the chosen undead. With Oolacile being prosperous and a source for many iterations of light magic, it lies as a very important place in Souls history. Even at the end of the entire Dark Souls trilogy, the chilling hellscape that is the Ring City was traversed in part by a missionary we all know now as Half-Light, and in collaboration with Princess Filianor, one of Gwyn's daughters, we end up finding him right near the end, titled Spear of the Church. He wields light magic that is impressive and is one of the only lasting details of old times in a world that is at its end. Moving back to the current timeline of Dark Souls 1, it is Manus who originally reaches through that portal in Darkroot Basin and sets us off on the journey to accomplish what Artorias could not. The Souls characters all have varying ranges of information, leading us to conclusions of their personalities. Some of them speak in words with tones or statements that tell it all.
Ah, hello. You don't look hollow, far from it. I am Solaire of Astora, an adherent of the Lord of Sunlight. Now that I am undead, I have come to this great land, the birthplace of Lord Gwyn, to seek my very own son.
While others are completely lost to time and only the remaining details embedded in the history of kingdoms can even begin to explain their origins or their goals. With Artorias, the single piece of information needed to verify his benevolence isn't just the fact that he rose to the occasion in protecting those who couldn't from forces unknown, but in his final moments, before becoming corrupted by the darkness of the Abyss, he ended up using the great shield that he carried to protect his companion Sif rather than himself. This ultimately changed the course of the story and brought an end to the hero. One thing that's massively apparent in the game is that his sacrifice doesn't go without remembrance, even symbolically in Sif's freedom. The present Sif upon reaching the grave in the Darkroot Forest signifies loyalty to her master even long after his passing. To the last second, she fights with everything she's got, and in her final moments, the limping kicks in, and she shows us that she might not make it. Even then, still swinging her friend Artorias' sword with the intent to honor his name and his legacy is something to be appreciated. So many of the great foes in the Soulsborne series are by no means near their peak. And so, to witness their power as the main character is only an echo of what could be possible, since we often arrive in times of collapse. When examining Artorias' sword in particular, FromSoft's choice to include 3 versions of the weapon was very cool in my opinion. 2 being made from the soul of Sif, and the Abyss Greatsword from the soul of Artorias. It allows us to experience the look and the feel of how he originally would have battled in combat, but also while preserving his current state as well. All of what the Abyss took from him was the use of his arm that originally held the shield, and his mind. Originally, I thought Artorias was blind. This is pure speculation, and while it could be true, I'm almost certain it's just the madness that his mind is experiencing through the corruption of the darkness. I have a strong suspicion that they programmed his movement and tracking to emulate this. Once you realize it actually, it kind of makes sense. At first, certain details of this could actually look like bad programming for his in-game tracking, but then out of nowhere he just comes and delivers a blow across the arena. This is really cool, and it reminds me of the cadence of Old Hero from Demon Souls, though in Old Hero's case, he actually is blind. The Knights of Gwyn all had special combat styles, and their abilities were entrusted for different purposes. Additionally, they were given special rings that can be considered some of the best items in the entire game. For the Knights, each one matches their specific style. It's clear that Ornstein's title of Dragon Slayer gives a direct representation of what he was known for. The Leo ring that Ornstein drops when defeating him after he absorbs the power of Smo makes his spear much more effective by increasing counterattacks. Kieran, on the other hand, a curved sword-wielding assassin, most certainly would have been more useful for stealth or infiltration while in service. The Hornet ring, entrusted to Kieran, was used to deal devastating damage on critical hits such as ripostes off of parries and backstabs. Hawkeye Goff, though retired and now blind, clearly demonstrates the ability to quickly and effectively send the Black Dragon Calamite plummeting straight into the earth after a tirade of endless fire and flight. Your character can totally pick away at Calamite for what would feel like an eternity, but this man in his decline, not his prime, takes one shot and hits the bullseye. The Hawk ring, granted to Goff, allows him to shoot his great arrows even further, but most importantly, the Wolf ring that gives the user unbreakable poise, especially when combined with heavy armor, was utilized by Artorias. With the details we know, it seems like Artorias would have been one of the 3 heavy hitters out of the 4 Knights of Gwyn. I'm not sure if any of you guys could relate to this, but when I finally reached Manus and I had completed him, there was a hollow feeling at the end. There's something about it that doesn't feel like it's fully our victory, and I do believe it's because we are just finishing the business that Artorias majorly started. Characters like Elizabeth and Dusk give us the incentive to do our best and succeed in relinquishing the darkness of Oolacile.
Indeed, the Abyss may be unstoppable. Still, I have faith that Princess Dusk may be rescued yet.
The reputation that precedes the legendary Wolf Knight rivals many heroes that we've encountered in the series, particularly amongst his comrades. I recently made a similar analysis on Gale from the end of the series, and he in particular is the exact opposite. Though you witness his legend, not many speak of him in comparison, nor do they seem to care for him at all.
The Red Hood is come to eat us.
It's kind of tricky to tell how Ornstein felt about Artorias, but it's very clear how much respect that he has gained from the other 2 Knights of Gwyn. When you return to Artorias' grave after defeating him in the Colosseum, Kieran is alongside and mourns the loss of her fellow knight, fighting for a mission that could have been considered hopeless from the very start.
The soul of the man who fell on this spot? He was a dear friend. I wish to pay proper respect with that soul. Would you be willing to part with it?
You have the choice not to give it to her, and you could also battle her. Though this isn't a traditional option given to you through dialogue, if you do end up hitting her first, she'll give you some dialogue that's very interesting. She claims that all us humans are the same, taking what we want, and if we are going to do so, then she will fight us. If you give her the soul, her appreciation is definitely felt, but upon not actually handing over Artorias' soul...
Yes, of course. I must not be presumptuous. Artorias would not have approved.
At the top of the Colosseum, in the Blacksmith Tower, resides Hawkeye Goff, mentioned earlier.
A visitor, have we? Thou must be the one who freed Artorias. An old friend he was. Thanks to thee, he left this world with honor intact.
In the cut dialogue that we never got to hear from the final version of the game, he speaks on how strongly Kieran felt for Artorias and how you should proceed with caution in her presence.
I should confer. If thine was the blade to which Artorias fell, then thou must be wary of Kiran. She had strong feelings for the great Artorias. The poor girl.
I really wish that this was kept in the game, but alas, the community is amazing and has provided tons of detail over the years to better help us understand these characters. The final words he leaves you with from the cut dialogue are, "Lead thy life as one sees fit." This is a powerful statement, but ultimately it sums up your role in Dark Souls. Are you the good guy, or are you the bad guy? What does that even mean? It's clear Artorias was one of the best of all, but even then, after failing his mission, he became something that was more like what he was trying to defeat in the first place. We make decisions in a world that already has so much going on. It's hard to point fingers and make claims of what ultimately is the best decision. I believe that bravery is the lesson here. It takes a strong will to change the scape of a world and its collapse, but it takes even more than that to run head-on into something that no one knows the full truth of. These legends that live long before our entry into the Dark Souls series are the cherry on top of a masterpiece of a story that still to this day gives me more and more tidbits of information and realization of how deep the experience outside of its sheer gameplay can be. Some interesting things I reflected on about the specific mission given to Artorias and the interconnected characters is, what exactly would have happened if he never tended to the Abyss? Would the world itself be in ruin? You are only able to enter the timeline of the DLC itself back in the past because of Manus bridging space and time. Because of Dusk, you're able to have an entry combined with the Broken Pendant, but if he was never able to battle Manus at all, Dusk would still be trapped and potentially inaccessible. Without knowing any information on the subject, but still existing as the Chosen Undead, in a world that continued, what would Manus have achieved with no restraints? My theory is that Gwyn's responsibility for the kingdom itself would force alternate orders as a last resort after Manus's reach increased beyond Oolacile. Unfortunately, it's very likely that this would be at the cost of other surrounding civilizations, though there is the prospect that many other people could join in the battle and help Gwyn. So the turn of events would be a lot more interesting to see and witness. Another thing is that Artorias would actually still be alive with his regular mind intact. That means we'd be able to speak to him, and he'd probably be a good guy. Now imagine you'd be able to summon him for battle yourself and have a conversation.
Hello!
Well, as this adventure comes to an end, I want to say thank you so much for making it to this point. And also, I have one last question. What would be your ultimate favorite character you'd like to see me cover in a future video? Let me know in the comments below, and as always, thank you so much for watching, guys.